So I give you sort of instructions how to meditate. How many sections we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. So I give you different meditations, like 6 different meditations. That means you don't have to meditate all this every day, but you can choose which meditation is good for you. And also we have only like 10 minutes, 20 minutes meditation. That's not enough, right? That's not enough, but we don't have time in this retreat. We have teaching, and also sometimes people really want to ask questions, and that's also we need. So we don't have lots of time to meditate, but you should meditate regularly, in your daily practice every day. Doesn't matter, morning, evening, afternoon, whenever you have time. Meditate at least 20 minutes every day. Then you can slowly, it takes time, change our habits, meditate the mind. Very take time, but that's fine. If you do meditate every day, then eventually getting better and better and better. That's for sure. But the most important is you have to keep these teachings and meditations. You have to keep in your mind. It's not during these 2 days, right? Not 2 days. You have to keep this in mind, and maybe it's good for make a notes and then go back, and next, you should investigate these teachings. What do you think? You like or not? Not necessarily you have to believe. You just this is the really good opportunity to think about Buddhism. It's very important to understand what's the essence of Buddhist teachings and what the view, that's very important. Then you have kind of really idea that you can investigate whether you like or not. If you like, then why not follow teachings, practice meditation, follow Buddhism. Why not? Because it helps you. If really you like, you enjoy, then why not? Even then you don't like, doesn't make sense, forget it, So it's your choice, completely 100% your choice. But you have to understand, otherwise you don't know how to investigate. You have to understand. So that's why I think this teaching, even though very short teaching, very, very short teaching, when I was in Tibet, just every day, 2 sections. We have morning teachings, and then lunch, and then a little bit sleep, right? And after lunch, and then teaching. So every day. I never work, never done just that, just practice meditation until now. That's my job, my work. So it's every day. It's just we need to. Still, Buddhism is very profound, very detailed. Especially if you studied Buddhist philosophy, you never, ever finish. I'm still learning. It's new things. It's very profound, especially the philosophy. It's wonderful. The philosophy is Buddhism is rich, very rich philosophy. So you cannot really. My root teacher told me one time you have to stop to study, otherwise you never finish. You have to stop and then you meditate. That's he told me. That's I believe. I can't finish. So 2 days and 6-7 sections we can't actually teach lots of Buddhism, but this is just one idea and about Buddhism you can think about in the future. Okay. Now the Four Noble Truths, what are they? Four Noble Truths, truth of suffering, right? First, okay, now we're going to teach about First Noble Truth. First Noble Truth is the truth of suffering. Suffering, okay? Why he teach, the Buddha taught the suffering, the First Noble Truth is suffering. Why this is the first? If you think about the order, it's not first, right? First the cause, right? We do something bad, and then we will suffer, right? So first is actually the cause of suffering. Then we are suffering. This is the opposite, right? This, he taught first suffering, and then cause of suffering, right? In the Four Noble Truths. Why he said this? Because you have to understand about suffering. Then you have a chance to, then you really, it makes you understand what is the cause of suffering. Because first you are suffering, then you are thinking about what is the cause of suffering, right? That's why he taught the first of suffering. But really order is the first cause of suffering, then we are suffering, right? But this is really important because he taught first for Noble Truth is the truth of suffering, because when you are suffer, we don't want that. Then we will think about what is cause of suffering. That's why. So the truth of suffering is the characteristic of samsara. And second Noble Truth is cause of suffering, and it is therefore the cause of samsara. And then third Noble Truth is the truth of cessation. And this truth is the characteristic of liberation. Liberation, or we call nirvana. And finally, the fourth Noble Truth is the truth of path, and it is the method to attain liberation. So, the first two Noble Truths are about the characteristic and cause of samsara, and the third and fourth Noble Truth are about the characteristics and cause of liberation. Understand? You have this, right? You have this piece of paper in your yellow folder. So you can see, I made this Four Noble Truth. The first line, the Four Noble Truth, and then four characteristics. Each has four characteristics, right? I will tell you this later. So here, the truth of suffering, the samsara and nirvana, right? Samsara and nirvana. Everything is include samsara and nirvana. Samsara means actually the cycle of existence, or this world, we call it samsara, this world, the universe, samsara. And then nirvana is liberation, right? Liberation. Freedom from suffering. That's what we call nirvana, freedom from suffering. So everything is include these two. So the samsara and nirvana, and okay, I don't want to teach you this, you will see here. So that's, you need to understand first two Noble Truths are the characteristic of samsara and cause of samsara. Second, third and Noble Truth are the characteristic of liberation, the nirvana, and cause of nirvana. So that's all. If you think that, it really makes sense. I mean, for me, these four characteristics of suffering are, okay, you need to understand suffering. First characteristic of suffering is suffering. Second is impermanence. Third, emptiness. And fourth, selflessness. These four characteristics the first noble truth, right? First noble truth is what? Truth of suffering, right? Understand? Truth of suffering. It has 4 characteristics. What are they? Suffering, impermanence, emptiness, and selflessness. Okay. Now, first of all, talking about the suffering, the first characteristic of the suffering. Now, the first of these characteristics is the suffering, and this can be further divided into 3 types of suffering. So all the sufferings include 3 sufferings. Okay? So in Buddhism, recognize there are 3 different sufferings. So the first is suffering of suffering. Second is suffering of change. Third, finally, the suffering, the pervasive suffering of conditioned existence. So now, without understand these sufferings, we can never be really free from suffering or find happiness. Okay, happiness and suffering opposite, right? But they also depends each other. And once you understand that there is suffering, we must also understand that there is a cause of suffering, right? Cause of suffering. So it is because Buddhist point of view, the suffering is, I just mentioned early this morning, right? It's not caused by outside conditions or by God, or no, definitely no. It is caused by karma and bad emotions. Bad emotions. And when we talk about karma that causes suffering, we are talking about negative karma. Negative karma. Things like anger and ignorance, attachment. This we call negative karma. And after we understand that there is a cause of suffering, then it is important to remember that this suffering can end or can diminish. Very important, can diminish. Okay? Now the first three sufferings. The first is suffering of suffering, right? Suffering of suffering. The suffering of suffering is characterized by the experience that before one type of suffering ends, another type of suffering arises. That's what we call suffering of suffering. For example, if you lose your job and then you lose your house, that's what we call suffering of suffering. If you died your father and then died mother together, after another, suffering of suffering. That's what we call suffering of suffering. So this suffering is actually even animals are capable of recognize clearly painful experience as unwanted, right? They know they don't want suffering of suffering. Understand suffering, very easy. And then the second suffering is suffering of change. Suffering of change is how things continually changing. Why do you think this is suffering? Everything is changing. Well, that's nature. Why that is suffering? For instance, when we start to grow old, right? Grow old, our body sort of continually changes. Eventually, we can't see very well, we can't hear very well, and our body hurts, and it's difficult to everything when we get old, right? Because we don't want that, but it's just, automatically. It's just the nature. So getting old, everything is going worse and worse. That means everything is changing. This is the suffering of change, right? This is the suffering of change. Everything changes moment by moment. And this is what makes us suffer. It's moment by moment, it's changing, second by second, right? Changing. We're not become like old like this, It's like this when we were born. No, right? It's not one day changed. Not 1 month, not 1 year. We're just slowly, just moment by second, by changing our body, our mind. Everything is slowly. We can't see how changes. We cannot see. That's we call subtle suffering, subtle changes. We call subtle changes. We can't see. We can see grow, change, like fell down or something. Broken something. That's we can see. That's very big things, right? But the subtle changes we cannot see. That's why people think, oh, permanent. My body is permanent. Same. Yes. Yesterday my body's. Same as today. Last year my body same as today. This year. No. It's no possible. But that means we can't see our subtle changing. Every day, every moment, That's why people think everything is permanent. Because you can't see, if you don't investigate, you can't see how things are changing moment by moment. So the suffering, the suffering of change, us slowly suffer, We can see this example of our body, Our body is just going worse and worse. Every moment by moment, worse and worse. Never get bad. That's for sure. So that means changing. That means changing, and this changing also make us suffer. This suffering change, even non-Buddhist practitioners can sort of successfully cultivate both the recognition that this is undesirable and the want to achieve free from it, So the second is the suffering change. Understand? Okay. Now the third kind of suffering is all pervasive. You understand this? Pervasive. It's a difficult word, I think. All pervasive suffering of condition is more difficult to understand. Even though, like in Buddhism, if you don't practice Buddhism, this is difficult to understand. But to make it simple, okay. You can think of it as a suffering that happens everywhere all the time, right? It means that if you have attachment to something, let's say this, if you have attachment to something, it will cause you to suffer, okay? When you have attachment, in the beginning, of course, have sort of fun and happiness, right? But that attachment will eventually cause you to suffer, really, For example, if you might buy nice things, might buy a computer, very nice, right? And you really like it when you buy it. And later the something happened, like keyboard doesn't work, your computer, and then you can't type certain letters, B, E, I can't use my E, it's broken, something underneath, something problem, I don't know. And then you get angry, very you get angry, definitely, I don't like this computer anymore. And now this anger makes you suffer a lot. This is permanent, and then always same, you need to just same color and working condition, but it's going worse, and then get angry, and then anger really make us suffer, right? Unhappiness brings an unhappiness, that's for sure. There was a history in Tibet. Someone had a house and a small door, a very small door, and when he went outside and coming, and always he hit the door, his head, he did no mindfulness, and then just hit, and because the door is too small, and then one day he got very angry with this door, and he hit the door with his hand, and he broke his finger. So of course, then very pain, very pain, suffering, right? Door doesn't happen. He got angry, then he can't control his anger, and then he just hit the door by his hand. He thought, door maybe will suffer. But no, cannot, because he will suffer, because he broke his finger. So anger really make us suffer. Attachment make us suffer, right? That's why we call three poison afflictions. Attachment, anger, ignorance. These three really we have to diminish. Otherwise we will, these three really makes us a lot of suffering. A lot of suffering. So that's why, the third suffering of this, it's very unique in Buddhism, I think. Especially, practitioners who sort of desire to look for complete liberation from samsara must develop a profound recognition of this kind of suffering. We need to cultivate an understanding that the suffering of this, the third suffering, is not only sort of it's this. I think the third suffering is the most important in order to understand the nature of suffering or samsara. So these three sufferings, Buddhism recognize the two things. Okay, two things. They are coming from karma and afflictions. These three sufferings comes from karma and afflictions.
Karma and what?
Afflictions, emotions, affliction, negative emotions. We call afflictions actually attachment. There are 5 afflictions: attachment, anger, ignorance, jealousy, proudy, right? Arrogance. So these 5 afflictions, but actually all these include three afflictions, which is attachment, anger, ignorance. So now these 3 suffering comes from karma and afflictions, right? The term karma literally means action. Karma means action, actually, action. And and more specifically refers to the process of cause and effect. Cause and effect. So karma arises from mental afflictions, which are mostly of two types, right? Conceptual afflictions, we call it, I think, conceptual afflictions, such as mistaking the views, and emotional afflictions, such as sort of desire and anger, or all this so and so. So these we called afflictions because we called dukkha. Affliction in Tibetan we call dukkha, which means they're arising in our mind, and mind immediately creates a form of afflictions characterized by start of deep disturbance, unrest, unhappiness. That's why we called dukkha. It's actually suffering. Karma afflictions create this disturbance, unhappiness. So generally, all these mental afflictions arise from the three basic poisons, right? Poisons of the mind: attachment, anger, ignorance, or you call delusion, right? Ignorance or delusion. Delusion is the foundation of the actually the other two, the attachment and anger, because all this the root affliction is the ignorance. So, of all our afflictions and Mahayana Buddhist point of view, the ignorance or the delusion refers to our mistaken notion of grasping at the real existence of things. There was a very important teacher. It's the second century Buddhist teacher called Nagarjuna. Explains that it is only by cultivating insight into the emptiness of self and phenomena that we can see through our delusions or ignorance, and brings this whole deluded chain of cause and effect to end. He explained this in his middle way. So therefore, the understanding of emptiness combined with the cultivate of compassion is the very essence of the practice of Buddha's teaching. So this is good news. The Buddha did not deny that the existence of suffering, but he also did not deny the existence of joy and happiness. If you think that Buddhism says always everything is suffering, everything is suffering and we cannot do anything about it, that's really opposite of the Buddha's the teaching or his message. The Buddha taught us how to recognize the presence of suffering, but he also taught the cessation of suffering, right? Sometimes people think, I'm done this, so I can't do anything. Sometimes people believe that, I killed this person, so I will suffer. I can't do anything because I already done. That's very misunderstood. You can diminish your, you can purify, right? You will purify your negative actions, negative emotions. So that's the only good things you can. We can do change. We can change. So we can change our suffering if there is no possibility of cessation, then what is the point of our practice, Why we waste time, People actually do not understand what suffering means, And the Buddha said that we need to understand. We need to understand suffering first. And once we understand suffering, then we need to understand what cause of suffering. Once we understand the cause of suffering, then we need to think about whether or not we can reduce this cause of suffering. Then Buddha says that we can actually reduce this cause of suffering because everything is interdependent origination, which means things are not permanent. They depend on each other. And to sort of happen, so that means we can change. First he came, become a Buddha, and then he came to Saranath from Buddhagaya. He said, I understood something very deeply through my meditation. It's a very unique idea that other religions doesn't have this idea, which is, I understand everything depends each other. Everything's interdependent origination. That's the unique his teaching, essence of his teaching. So that means suffering is also depends cause and conditions. Causes, conditions also depends on how you work with. You can really reduce, you can diminish, you can, it's not permanent, right? So therefore, suffering is not caused by God or by outside conditions. It is caused by negative karma and bad emotions. Understand? We can change this. We can change, our negative emotions. Why not? So I always think that there is a big difference between just think about suffering without practice. I didn't know when I was in Tibet, but I came here, I just noticed that some people really don't want to hear about suffering. I'm just thinking, why? I mean, when I was in Tibet, I through my practice, through my study, really important to think about suffering, because we need to reduce our suffering, because then we understand what cause of suffering. I thought, why? People say people don't want to listen about suffering. I just investigate many times when I came here. I never noticed, and when I was in Tibet, because Tibetans, they really want to hear about suffering, and they always ask, how should I reduce my suffering? They always ask that, but I think that's big different, because without practice, without understanding teaching the Dharma, then really if you think suffering, it's not good. Your mind makes it's torture yourself, it makes worse, because you don't have a solution of this problem, But if you understand teachings, Dharma, and especially you meditate, then think about suffering, it's really good. It extremely helps to your meditation, because you have a solution, and you have antidote. Oh yeah, I understand this, and because of that, and so that's big different. If you are Dharma practitioner, you have to think about suffering, but it makes you happy, not unhappy. If you're not Dharma practitioner, don't think suffering, because it makes you unhappy, I think. In this country, I don't know. But If you are Dharma practitioner, definitely it supports your meditation. It makes you unhappy. Because why? Why makes if you think about suffering, makes unhappy? Because suffering comes from, well, what? Suffering comes from negative emotions. Negative emotions, I mean the attachment or this. Attachment, for instance, comes from nice things. Attachment means it's really difficult to separate, from someone or something, right? That's we call the suffering, the attachment. I love this, then I can't separate with this because that's the attachment. So attachment comes from other things, because then suffering, right? Attachment makes you suffer because changing. These things changing. Getting worse because getting old, right? Something happened. Change, why? Because impermanent. Everything impermanent. So you understand more and more. Everything is impermanence. You cannot change that. Become a permanent. There's no way to change, become something impermanent, change into permanent. So you less worry, right? Oh yeah, this changing, but it's nature. It's really nature. It's changing always, all the time changing. Why I worry that? My computer is getting worse. Why I worry? Because it's impermanent. It's changing. My body is I worry my body, but why I worry? Because there is no need to worry, because it's nature. I mean, why you worry? Because if even you worry, we can't do it. Yeah.
I don't understand where love comes in then.
Love. Love is two types of love. The great love is you love everybody, and less love is you love your husband, you love your children, you love your dog, you love this mixed, the attachment. Your love is mixed, your attachment. This also make you suffer. The big love or the great love or great compassion, right? Love and kindness. That means make you happy because you love everybody. Why? Because everybody don't want suffering. Everybody want happiness. Exactly same you. You understand that. Then why I harm others? Because if somebody harm me, I don't like that. Because I will be suffering. Then why I harm others? Because they don't want that. So we are equal. All people, all animals, all beings equally that we want happiness, no suffering. So the great love really take care of everybody. That include your husband. That doesn't mean, you have to diminish attachment. That doesn't mean you have to diminish your children, your house. No, right? That means you need more love. More love. Exactly how much you love your husband, exactly you love others like that. Then your mind is more open. Your life is really, really wonderful, because if you love everybody, then everybody loves you. We depends each other. I always think that when I meditate, so just to deeply understand how much these old people are important to me, how much this living beings so important in my life. I understand that. All my food, my clothes, my money comes from these people. All my compassion, my patience, my practice comes from these people. Both ways, I understand how important these people are for me, even though my life, Without these people, I can't exist. I can't meditate. When I practice bodhicitta, when I practice love and kindness, practice compassion, I'm thinking about others, right? If there are others doesn't exist, how I engaged my practice? There's no way. Even though if I want to become a Buddha, what's the point? Without existence, living beings. Buddha is what's the point? Nothing. Become a Buddha means help others, teach others, lead them, their life happy life. If someone who are very bad person, help him, transform into a good person. That's the Buddha's or teacher's job. That's their motivation, their intention, right? So if living beings no exist, then what is the point? Your meditation. What is the point? Become a Buddha. What is the point? All these teachings? Nothing. So that's the same. Also, the living beings so important. Think about your business, money, all these good things, your knowledge. Comes from where? You have to think that. Comes from. Where comes from your money? Think about. Oh, I worked. For who? So important. So that's why, if you understand, now go back, understand suffering, really, if you practice Dharma, makes you happy. Makes you really happy. Because makes you happy means less worry, less stress, right? So if you understand the impermanence, less worry. Why I worry changing these things? Then why I worry? This nature. I don't worry. It's less worry. So that's why suffering is there, I think, big difference between thinking about suffering without practice or with practice. So different. So now, when we hear or think or talk about teaching or about Dharma or study like this, I don't know you like Buddhist or not. I don't care. You need to you need to remain open. That's the most important. Usually when we hear or when we read book or something, you learning something new, right? Then we just compare it to our own idea, right? Open means that. Open mind means you need to learn something, then you have compared to on your idea. And if you are not open your mind, how you learning new things? If you see there's a Buddhist book, forget it. I'm not Buddhist. I don't want to read it. Why? That means you really close your mind. You have very narrow mind. When you see Christian books, I would like to, read all these books, and then I learning something new, and then I can compare on my idea which is the best for me. Then that's very important, I think, for me. Go to monastery. Sit down, practice, say some prayers. Go to church, sit down, pray. Which one is you like? And how about your energies? You can see what's different. If you never go to church and only go to monastery, in Tibetan monastery, you don't know what it feels in church. Maybe church is better your prayer. Who knows? You need to open and do everything, and then compare it and choose one. That's good for your life. The left and right channels are same size. Okay, the central channel is a little bit bigger. Channels are you have to visualize. You have to visualize. The channels are very clean and very straight, and now you can see this picture. It makes you really helps you understand the right channel and left channel start from your nostrils, okay, and circle around the top of your eyes. Can you see the red and white, the line, the channel? Start from nostrils and goes like that, circle on the top of your eyes, and then go down the side here, right and left side in your body. Okay? And then until they reach the bottom of the torso. At this point, they merge together into the central channel. Can you see this? The central channel is blue, right? So they're merged into the central channel, and then going up, and then your heart center. This is actually going really all the way your crown chakra. But we should stop here, visualize, stop your heart center, okay? And then visualize your heart center. You can visualize a spear of light in your heart center, okay? Now, this is also the combination of your breath in the channel. So now, when the left and right channel start your nostrils, that means you breathe in. When you breathe in, your breath goes into the channels, 2 channels, and then also go down and then merge into the central channel. Your breath come up and then hit the spear of light, and spear of light really getting brighter, brighter and brighter. So then just focus on that. And then when you have to start, breathe in, do that. Okay? Now, 5 minutes. 5 minutes meditate on the 3 channels, okay? Exactly like this. Oh no, except like this goes through the heart, the crown chakra, but we just only heart center. Understand? Understand how you do? Okay, good. Now I'll do 5 minutes.